بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له. كان الله ولا مكان فهو الآن على ما عليه كان. فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال ولله المثل الأعلى ولله المثل الأعلى. تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود وعن الحركة والسكون وعن الاتصال والانفصال. لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء، لأنه ليس كمثله شيء. مهما تصورت بذلك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين، كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without me being obligated. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and to protect His Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe, and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about everything that He conveyed in the revelation. Thereafter, remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having a sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. For the sake of Allah to get a reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah. We are thankful to Allah that we have been guided to Islam, which is the greatest endowment, because the one who dies as a Muslim inevitably will enter paradise. So the one who dies upon the religion of Islam, with the creed of La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in their heart, that Muslim who dies as a Muslim, even if he was an enormous sinner, even if he had sins the size of mountains, as long as that person is categorized as a Muslim in reality, meaning that he has the firm conviction that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, and the person doesn't say or do or believe anything that contradicts that takes him out of that. There are some people that they do not have the concept of blasphemy, kufr, they do not have it clear. For us, alhamdulillah, it is clear because we have learned the basic knowledge of the religion. So the basic knowledge of the religion, the Muslim learns that in order to be Muslim, you have to satisfy certain conditions. You have to have two things: the firm belief in La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, yani the firm belief being without a doubt, and they have to say that with their tongue. If they were not already Muslim, then they have to say with their tongue to enter into Islam. If they were born to Muslim parents and so they are judged as Muslim by association to their parents, and they grow up having the Islamic creed in their heart, and then when they become pubescent, yani they're judged as Muslim, they don't have to say the Shahada to enter into Islam or to be judged as Muslim. But those who, they were not Muslim before, yani they were born to non-Muslim parents, so they're judged as non-Muslim by association. Then as they grow, those non-Muslim parents indoctrinate that child with the blasphemy, whether it be Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or atheism or Satan worship, whatever the case may be. And then that child keeps that creed because they've been indoctrinated, because that's the norm. Whatever you fill a child's heart with, it will accept it and it will remain, usually into adulthood. But then that child, let's say, grows up, they have even if they don't fast Ramadan because they're too attached to food. Fornicators, they have sexual intercourse outside of marriage. It's blasphemy, and it's less than disbelief, it's less than kufr. That person, if they die in the state of Islam, even though they had a lot of sins, eventually they'll make it to paradise. So their situation in the hereafter, the situation of the Muslim sinner, is 50-50. Either he is forgiven completely and he doesn't get tortured or punished at all, and he enters paradise without previous torture. Or that Muslim sinner will get tortured in the grave, and he'll get tortured on Judgment Day, and he'll get tortured in hellfire, but he won't remain in hellfire forever. And it's possible that the Muslim sinner, he gets tortured in the grave only, and then on Judgment Day, he won't be tortured. Or he's tortured on Judgment Day and or he's tortured in the grave and on Judgment Day, but he won't enter hell. So that's the situation of the Muslim. In any case, even if the Muslim goes through hell first, he will be eventually taken out of hell, and he will enter paradise, and he will remain in paradise forever, because that is the virtue of Islam. Yani Islam, dying as a Muslim, having the correct creed in your heart, that is what will enable you to enter into paradise in the hereafter, and it will enable you to have mercy, to receive mercy from Allah. But the person who's not a Muslim, no matter how they live their life in this world, if they were the most polite and the kindest, and they gave all their money to the poor and to feed the hungry, and they never even threw a piece of trash on the sidewalk, if he dies as a non-Muslim who is accountable, meaning sane, pubescent, and received the basic message of Islam, he will enter hellfire and stay there forever. Because the precedence is given to the highest obligation, the most important obligation, the biggest obligation, which is to be Muslim. To have the correct creed and to be Muslim. So we thank Allah, and we are grateful to Allah, and we are happy that we have been guided to Islam. And we are also grateful and happy, and we are thankful to Allah that we have been given access to the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the saved group. The Prophet ﷺ, he himself said that those who identify as Muslims from this nation, all of those people, they're going to split up into 73 groups, and all of them will be in hellfire except for one. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made it clear who that one group was. He said, the majority. In another narration, the vast majority. In another narration, the congregation. In another narration, those who have my creed and the creed of the companions. So the Prophet ﷺ described the saved group. And so throughout any time in history, if you take a snapshot of that time, or if you look at it from beginning until now, the majority of the people who say, I am Muslim, they have the creed of the Prophet ﷺ, and they have the creed of the companions. And that is the saved group. And so the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah is the knowledge that enables the individual to walk on the path to paradise. The knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah is the key to paradise. The knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah is the life of Islam. And so we are grateful and thankful and happy grateful and thankful, and we are happy that Allah Ta'ala has guided us to be able to acquire the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah, and to spread it, and to support it, and to memorize it, and to defend it. And this is basically what the prophets were sent to do, is to teach the people the creed, is to teach the people the information that they need to know so that they can make it to paradise. We're going to continue on with our subject matter in the Islamic law, a very famous book, a very famous beginner's book in the Islamic law. It is called Matn Shuja, and it's also known as Matn al-Ghayati wat-Taqrib, which is authored by the famous Shafi'i judge Abu Shuja, Ahmad ibn Ahmad. So this book, it is studied by those who are formally studying the Islamic law at the beginner level, the entry level, and one of the first books that you learn is this book. So we're going over this book. We have an English version of the text, the Matn, plus the explanation. And as I can tell, this is an explanation that is a compilation of different explanations. There's many explanations to this classical work in the Islamic law. So I could tell that's a compilation. I could tell that different details and different cases and different things were taken from different explanations. They were put together, very well put together. May Allah Ta'ala reward and bless those who have worked on this. Ameen. So we're going to start from page 25. If you remember the last class, we spoke about the types of water. So we mentioned that the first chapter begins talking about the types of water because water is the tool of purification. So we defined purification and we mentioned what it was. We mentioned that it is to lift a ritual impurity or to remove a najis filth or what is like them or takes their place. And what is like them or in their meaning. And then we mentioned the 7 types of water. We mentioned rainwater, seawater, river water, melted hail, melted snow, spring water, and well water. Now we said that the author began by saying it is valid to make purification with these types of water. So this categorization of the author is just mentioning different categorizations or listing different things because remember in the introduction we said that his friend asked him to write a summarized book in the Islamic law and to include a lot of lists. And so that's what the author did. The author complied and the author is doing what his friend asked him to do. Then, after mentioning these 7 types of water, this author, he began to divide and categorize water from a different angle, from a different aspect. So at first he said the types of water are 7, and he's referring to different places where the water comes from. And then he said, then water can be divided into 4 divisions, into 4 groups. So we're going to mention what these 4 are. We're going to go into detail. And we're going to mention also the definition of the purifying water. So the definition that encompasses all those 7 types. So these 7 types of water, you can define them as what falls from the sky or what springs from the earth in any attribute that it has from its original form. So for example, if there's a river and there's a lot of, let's say, red soil on the riverbed, that river is going to look reddish. So the fact that the river looks reddish, it doesn't affect the purifying property of the water. It doesn't change the fact that you can use that water for wudu. It doesn't change the fact that you can use that water to make ghusl. So if you go up to a riverbank and you see that the water is brown, and you ask yourself, can I make wudu with this water? The answer is yes. Can I make ghusl with this water? The answer is yes. Can I remove najis filth with this water? The answer is yes. So now we're going to talk about these 4 divisions. So remember that we're reading below the line. We're starting like above the line and then reading below the line, but all this now that we're reading is considered to be below the line. So we're on page 25 in the middle of the page. The author said, if someone wants to subdivide the water, taking into consideration the judgment of the water, there are 4 types of water. So first the author said there's 7 types, and referring to where they come from. Now the author is saying there's 4 types of water, and he based on another aspect, from another aspect. So he said, number 1, pure and purifying water, which is not disliked to use. And this is the absolute water. And in the Islamic law terminology, it's known as tahir mutahhir, ghayru makruh. This is called al-ma' al-mutlaq, yani the absolute water. The absolute water is the water that is still in its state as it was created in its place on earth. It is not restricted water, as for example, rose water is. So if the water in the place that it was created in is not changed, then even if its color is different from its usual color, it does not matter. Or if its taste is different from its usual taste, it does not matter. So if you have salty water in a lake, you can use it for purification, just as you can use the river water. Or if you have a pond with green water, you can use it for purification, just as you can use the seawater for purification. So we have the first category is pure and purifying water, which is not disliked to use. The second category is pure and purifying water that is disliked, which is sun-heated water. This is known in Arabic as tahir, mutahhir, makruh. This is the water heated by the sun-heated water. This water is disliked to use on one's body, but it is not disliked to use to wash one's clothes. However, it is disliked to use it to wash one's body or to drink, because it is feared for the one who uses it to get sick as a result of that. He might get leprosy, baras. Our master Ahmad radiyallahu anhu said that if one uses it, one might get that sickness. Had it been for sure that one would get that sickness, then it would be sinful to use. This is why it is disliked to use the sun-heated water on one's body. However, if one waited until this sun-heated water cools down to its normal temperature, then it is not disliked to use it. Leprosy is an ugly white color that occurs on one's skin. There are conditions for it to be considered sun-heated water. So first let's clarify that the pure and purifying water, which is disliked to use, is a very specific kind of water. So it has to be sun-heated, and other conditions have to apply to it. So what it means is that it's disliked religiously, that you should leave it out, but it's not sinful if you don't leave it out. That it should be left out. The Muslim should not make wudu with sun-heated water. The Muslim should not make ghusl with sun-heated water. The Muslim should not use any of the sun-heated water on his body. Because why? As you're going to see, what sun-heated water is. What sun-heated water is water that is heated in a hot country inside of a metal container. And it's something that, a container that was made by hitting with a hammer. In a metal container. A metal besides gold and silver. So someone is, let's say, there's a container, let's say, of copper or steel, and that container is holding some water in a hot country, and the heat of the sun from that hot country heats up that water, makes the water hot. While that water is hot, it's disliked, makruh, to make wudu with it, or to make ghusl with it, or to drink it. So these are the 3 conditions. It says for the water to be heated by the sun and not by fire, for example. Number 2 is for water to be heated in a metallic container. That is a container which one can change its shape meaning a metal that is malleable with hammering. An exception is the container made of gold and silver. Number 3, for it to be heated in an area that is considered a hot area, a hot zone, like the tropical areas and the like, such as Mecca and Arizona, but not Philadelphia. The countries of Asham are not considered any hot zone. So we're talking about Mecca. We're talking about these places that are known to be hot places. Places that at a certain point in time, like the sun gets so hot, if you were to like pour water on your head, before the water reaches down to the end of your shirt, you're going to be dry again. So this is what's considered to be a hot zone, like a hot country, a hot place. So the author said, the water heated by the sun in a hot area in gold and silver container, in a gold or silver container, is not considered a sun-heated water. It is not disliked to use that water, except it is sinful to use the water out of the gold or silver container. So one can take the water out of the gold or silver container by pouring it into another container, and from that container one can use that water for wudu. This is so because it is sinful to take the water with your hand from the golden container and wash your face with it. The water heated by fire is not disliked to use, except if it is very hot or very cold, because then one is not going to pay attention to one's wudu as one would when the water is not like that. So, why is this sun-heated water that is heated in a hot zone, not by fire, heated by the sun, in a metallic container other than gold or silver? Why does that make the water disliked to use? The reason is because there is some particles or there's like a film that appears on the surface of the water when it is heated by the sun in a metallic container. And this film that appears on the surface of the water is potentially harmful. It's not certainly harmful, because if it were certainly harmful, then it would be forbidden. It's potentially harmful. It might cause leprosy, but since it is not certain, it is not forbidden, but it is disliked. Now, the difference between the metallic container and the gold and silver container in this case, and meaning that the judgment of the metallic container and the sun-heated water in a hot zone, it doesn't apply to the gold and silver container because the composition of the gold and silver is pure. And so this film that would appear on the water, it doesn't happen with the gold and the silver. On the other hand, but in another case, and even though the gold and the silver are an exception to the sun-heated water rule, but from another angle, using a container of gold or silver to do anything is forbidden. And using a utensil made out of gold and silver is forbidden for both men and women. So it's forbidden to eat with a golden spoon, or eat with a silver spoon, to eat with a golden plate, or to eat with a silver plate, or to drink from a golden cup, or to drink from a silver cup. This is forbidden. This is haram. Any instrument or tool that you have, if it's made out of gold or silver, it's haram to use it. For example, if you have a golden watch, it's haram. If you have a silver watch, it's haram. If you have, say, a golden phone, if it's actually made out of gold, it's haram. If it's for men and women, yes. Using the utensils made out of gold or silver is forbidden for men and women. It's not like jewelry. Jewelry, gold and silver, jewelry is permissible for women, not for men. Then I meant like the mechanics of the watch, like the knob and the hands of the watch. Though that would be for the woman to. Would it be like jewelry? If someone had an applicator, like a kuhl stick that's made out of gold, is forbidden to use it. So if someone had a container of gold and they had water inside of that container, it would be haram for them to use that container and to scoop their hand in to make wudu with it. However, the wudu would still be valid, but it's forbidden to do. Also, in general, if the water is very hot or very cold, it's disliked to use it to make wudu. What's the reasoning behind it? It's because when the water is very hot, the person won't be able to completely make his wudu like in the perfect way. Because of the water being hot, he'll be, like wanting to get his hand out of the water, for example. So he'll grab water fast, and he won't make the wudu as perfectly as he could. So it's disliked to use. Same thing with the cold water. The third category of water is the pure water that is not purified, which is the used water, or water that was changed by what blended with it of pure materials. طاهر غير مطهر. This includes the used water and the water that has changed by mixing with other substances. So it is either used water or changed by mixing with pure material. This third type of water is water that is pure by itself, but it is not valid to use it in purification. Hence, it is pure but not purifying water. So when we say about water that is pure, this water that is pure is considered to be permissible to consume. And when we say it's pure water, we mean it's not filthy, it's not najas. So if the water is pure, you can drink it, you can consume it, you can use it for broth, you can make a drink with it. But because it's not purifying, then you cannot use it to make wudu, you cannot use it to make ghusl, you cannot use it to remove filth. Because that water has either been already previously used to make wudu or to make ghusl, or that water was used to remove some filth and the water remained pure, or the person mixed into that water another pure substance until that water no longer can be called water. What does that mean? If you have a bottle of water, you never use it for wudu, you never use it for ghusl, it's a brand new bottle of water. You open the cap and you pour in let's say, some chocolate powder. You put some chocolate powder into a bottle of water. Now what happens when that chocolate powder mixes together with that water? The chocolate powder is pure, that meaning it's not najas filth. But what happens when the chocolate powder mixes in with the water? The water is going to turn into what's going to mix together with the chocolate powder, and now you're going to have chocolate water. And you're going to have yuhu. So if that happens, and somebody points at your bottle of water and you say, hey, what's in that? What's in that bottle? And you say, if you were to say water, it would be a lie, then that water is not, you cannot use that water for wudu or for ghusl, because it's no longer water, because that is pure but not purified. So that is the meaning of that. And the water that is used for purification or for removing filth, and the water that changes because of being mixed with a natural, because of being mixed with a pure substance to the extent that the water changes and it can no longer be called water, both of these things are considered to be the third category, which is water that's pure but not purifying. So hence, it is pure but not purifying water. Used water is not purifying water, although it is pure. Used water includes the water which one already used in an obligatory wudu or ghusl, and it was a little amount of water. Once this water separates from the organ which one is washing in wudu or ghusl, and it is a small amount of water, then this separated water is considered used water. It is pure, but it is not purifying, meaning one cannot use this water another time to make wudu. Likewise, if one removed a najis filth with a small amount of water, and the water which separated was neither changed nor had more weight, and the place that had the najis filth was clean, then this water is still pure but not purifying, and it is considered used water. For example, if a person's hand got contaminated with urine, and after a little while it dried, and there were no traces of the urine on the hand, no smell, no color, and no taste, but one knows that this place on the hand was contaminated by urine, and so it is najis. To remove the najis filth, one needs to wash that area. This can be done by pouring a little amount of water on it. Once the water runs on it and separates from the hand, and this water removes the najis filth, that hand is now clean. And if this water that separated was not changed in smell, color, taste, or weight, then this small amount of water is still considered pure but not purifying. It is used water. So the used water is the little amount of water which was used to lift a ritual impurity by making wudu or ghusl, or was used to remove a najis filth, and it removed the najis filth without the water changing in color, smell, or taste, or increasing in weight. However, the little amount of water which was not used in the obligatory purification, rather for making the sunnah wudu or the sunnah ghusl, like for example the little amount of water used in renewing one's wudu, this water is still pure and purifying, tahir, mutahhir. It is not considered used water. So let's unpack this, because for those that this is the first time hearing it, it's you're getting that experience, that feeling. In the Islamic law, there's conditions, there's integrals, there's invalidators, and there's things that you have to keep in mind. So here, for the water, first keep in mind that we're talking about a little amount of water. What's a little amount? Anything that is less than 2 qullas. Anything that is less than 2 qullas, which is approximately 190 liters. Approximately 191 liters. So that is considered to be a large amount of water. 2 qullas, 191 liters. Whatever is less than that is considered a little amount of water. Like a puddle of water, like a bucket of water, like a bottle of water, like a sink full of water. This is called a little amount of water. So if that little amount of water, if it changes because of being mixed with something pure, whether it's edible or not, milk, ink, whatever, sugar, then if the taste of the water, or the smell of the water, or the color of the water, if any one of them changes because of it being mixed with a pure substance that is easy to guard the water from, then that water is not called water anymore, and it is still pure, so you can consume it, but you cannot use it to make wudu. But you cannot use it to make ghusl, but you cannot use it to remove filth. Now, so that's the condition. The substance that is easily shielded from the water, if it mixes together with the water to the extent that the water changes, and it's a little amount of water, then you cannot use it for wudu, you cannot use it for ghusl. But then someone might ask, oh Shaykh, what if only a drop of milk fell into the water? So then we check. Did that drop of milk being mixed together with the water, did it change it to the extent that if someone asked you, what is that? And you said water, that you would be lying? If someone asks you what it is and you say water, would you be telling the truth? If the answer is yes, then you can still use that water to make wudu, you can still use that water to make ghusl, you can still use that water to remove filth. If someone were to ask you, what's in that container, and you say water, if that would be a lie, then that is no longer water, you cannot use it for wudu or ghusl. Clear on that before moving on?
Daddy? Sarah has a question. Daddy?
Yes.
How would you know on the case
If what?
How would the person know in the case, right?
If, let's say, something fell in it?
Yeah.
If it was a little amount? Or just in general? Little amount, right? So you would know only by witnessing it, for example. Or if someone tells you and you believe them. So, the water that is used to make wudu, that falls off of the body, that water that separates from the body is called used water. If someone uses it to make wudu or uses it to make ghusl, an obligatory wudu or obligatory ghusl, that water that drips off of you is considered used water. So you cannot use it again for wudu or ghusl. If the person, they weren't making an obligatory wudu or an obligatory ghusl, that person in that case, the water that drips off of them is not considered to be used water. So when the person is making wudu, so yeah, this is just something to be careful of, because it might happen. And you might not, for example, have noticed it. But when you're making wudu, let's say in the sink, and you get the water in your hands for the first time to wash your face, and then you wash your face, doesn't it indicate the water drips down off of you? Let's say you scoop some more water, and you wash your face one time, and so that water is dripping off your face. You got water dripping off your face. So you get water again, and usually the sink is right there in front of you, and the water is dripping where? Right inside of your hand. So if too much drips in there from your face from the first time that you're washing it, now that's used water that's being mixed with the unused water. And if it's too much, then that water will be changed. And that water will be not purified. Too many drops, no. Like too many drops falling. Because then what would happen, the person would have to estimate if the same amount of drops of something that has a moderate smell, a moderate color, a moderate taste, were to fall into that water, would it change it or not? So if the answer is yes, then it would be used, or it would be changed. If the answer is no, then you can still use it. So what is that? The moderate color, taste, and smell. The taste of pomegranate, the color of grapes, that is what they call black grapes, and the smell of something called al-ladhan. Some people refer to it as, said that it's the frankincense, and other than that was said. I've not found an exact translation for al-ladhan. But so anyway, the point is that if the person is making wudu and they wash their organ, that organ that they wash for the first time, that's the obligatory wash. So if any water that drips off of that water that drips off is considered used water. But if they wash their face a second time, since they already lifted the impurity from the first wash, the second wash that they use, the water that they use for the second wash, if it drips, it's not considered used water because it did not lift an impurity. Now for the case of removing filth, which it does help in certain situations to be able to picture the scenario or to picture the case, and to be able to imagine it in a practical application. So I might give an example, I might not, but first learn the rule. The rule is, if the person removes najis filth with a small amount of water, less than 2 qullas, and when they remove the filth, and it was actually removed from the spot that they removed the najis from was actually purified, and the water that was left over did not change in color, taste, or smell, or weight, didn't increase in weight, then that water is judged as pure. Even though it's a little amount of water, and even though it did come into contact with filth, but that washing that it did, removing the filth, because it was poured on or whatever, that washing does not automatically make the water filthy. If those 3 conditions are found, if those 3 conditions are fulfilled, meaning the spot was purified and the color, taste, and smell of the water did not change and the water did not increase in weight, then that water is considered to be pure. But since it was used to remove filth, it is considered to be used. It is considered to be used. Let's see if we can find an example. Yeah, I don't have an example. Let's see if there's an example. Okay, if a person's hand got contaminated with urine, and that urine dried, and there were no traces of the urine on the hand, no smell, no color, and no taste, but one knows that this place on the hand was contaminated by urine, and so it is najis. To remove the najis filth, one needs to wash that area. This can be done by pouring a little amount of water on it. Once the water runs on it and separates from the hand, and this water removes the filth, that hand is now clean, and that hand is now clean, and if this water is purifying, it is used water. So if the used water is the little amount of water, which was used to lift a ritual impurity by making wudu or ghusl, or was used to remove a najis filth, and it removed the najis filth without the water changing in color, smell, or taste, or increasing in weight. However, the little amount of water which was not used in the obligatory purification, now this is the case. However, the little amount of water which was not used in the obligatory purification, rather for making the sunnah wudu or the sunnah ghusl, like for example, the little amount of water used in renewing one's wudu, this water is still pure and purifying, tahir mutahhir. It is not considered used water. The second type of used water is the changed water.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Which part?
The last one you just said.
Daddy?
The little amount of water used in renewing one's wudu, this water is still pure and purifying, tahir mutahhir. It is not considered used water, and for something that's not an obligation. Like renewing the wudu, the sunnah renewing of the wudu, like when you're already on wudu and you've prayed a prayer, then you want to pray another prayer, it is sunnah to make wudu again. The second type of used water is the changed water. It is the pure water that is totally mixed with another substance that dissolved in it in a way that one cannot differentiate the parts of that substance with the parts of the water. And this mixing could have easily been prevented. And it changed the status of it from being called water. This then is no longer purifying water. It is pure but not purifying, except if it was difficult to prevent this substance from being mixed with the water, such as the mineral water, which is mixed with minerals in the ground. That water would still be purifying, because it is difficult to prevent the minerals from being mixed with the water. Likewise is the case of the green algae in the big pond. The green algae in the big pond. After a while, this algae dissolves in the water and the water turns green. This water is still purifying water because it was difficult to separate or prevent these algae from mixing with the water. However, if one purposely adds a little chlorine to the water, this small change does not affect the status of the water. It is still called water. What affects its status is the strong change. So a little bit of chlorine in the water does not change the water. It does not make the water become not purifying. What affects its status is the strong change. So in the Islamic law, there is a difference between the pure substance that gets mixed with the water, while it's easy to prevent that substance from going into the water, and the pure substance that gets mixed together with the water, that is not easy for that water to be shielded from that substance. So something that is easy for the water to be shielded from that substance is like milk. It's easy to keep, let's say, a container of water, a bucket of water, free from being contaminated with milk. It's easy, from being mixed together with milk. It's easy to prevent, let's say, a bag of tea or tea leaves from being mixed together with the water, because you can keep the water in a container, or the milk and the tea leaves that have to be intentionally put into the water. But if there is a pure substance that is difficult to keep it away from the water, and that pure substance, it falls into the water and mixes together with the water and changes the color of the water and changes the smell of the water, it changes the taste of the water. Since it is difficult to keep it out of the water, it does not change the judgment of the water. It does not make the water not purifying. The water remains purifying. Why? Because that thing that got mixed with it was pure, and it was difficult to shield the water from it. So the example was given like algae. The example was given like the minerals that are inside of the earth. If there is some water coming from an aquifer or water that's coming from under the ground naturally, and it passes by sulfur or it passes by other minerals, it's going to have a certain smell, it's going to have a certain taste that is not originally the taste or the smell of the water, but because it's going through that place, it acquires that, it changes from that. You can still use that water to make wudu, and you can still use that water to make ghusl. Any questions about that before moving on to the next case? طيب. It says, note, in the case of adding a substance that has the same attributes as the water, so one cannot tell if the water has changed by looking at it or smelling it or tasting it, such as adding rose water that lost its smell and taste. Here one needs to estimate if an equal amount of a substance which has attributes similar to these was added to the water, would it change it? We estimate, for example, instead of used water, if we had an equal amount of pomegranate juice added to this water, would it change the taste of the water? If the answer is yes, then this water is not purifying. If the answer is no, then it is still purifying. For the color, we estimate if an equal amount of grape juice fell, would it change its color? For the smell, we check with lathan or lathun. You can say lathan or lathun. You can also say lathin. So one estimates with an equal amount that differs from it in a moderate way. If the answer is yes, then it is not purifying. If the answer is no, then it is purifying. If one checks the taste, then one checks the smell. And after one checks the taste, then one checks the smell, and then one checks the color. Lathun or lathan. Some say it's frankincense. Frankincense. You ever seen that? They're like little rocks. They look like rocks, and when you burn it, it gives off like this very strong smell. Like it's a nice smell. The angels love that smell, by the way, and the devils hate that smell. Frankincense. You burn it, it's like little rocks. And you can chew them too. And you can chew them.
Beige color.
Yeah, the beige color, that's right.
Yeah.
So some said that's what lathan is. But there's other things about what lathan is.
You can eat it. So
You can eat it, yeah.
okay, the smell when it's burning or when it's not burning?
No, as it is. Well, actually, that detail, I've never heard that detail, but they never mentioned burning. So what is this case talking about? It's talking about if there's a container of something that looks like water, but you're not sure. Or let's say there's a container of water, and let's say some rose water that lost its smell and taste. You know, if you've seen rose water, it looks exactly like water, except that it smells like the rose and it tastes like that. But if you leave the rose water sitting for a long time, it'll eventually lose those properties, and then it'll just look exactly like water. It'll taste exactly like water, smell exactly like water. So let's say some of that rose water, it was put into a container of water. Now you want to know, can I still use that water to make wudu? So you estimate, if that same amount of, let's say, rose water that lost its properties, if that same amount of pomegranate juice was put into that water, would it change the color? If the answer is yes, then that water cannot be used. If the answer is no, then you check the next thing. If the taste, so for the color, it's the grape juice. If the same amount of grape juice was put into that water, would it change the color? If the answer is yes, then you cannot use that water. If the answer is no, then you can use the water. And for the taste, if you put that same amount of pomegranate juice into the water, would it change the taste? If the answer is yes, then you cannot use that water. If the answer is no, you can still use that water to make wudu. For the smell, if that same amount of lathan was put into the water, would that change the smell of the water? If the answer is yes, then you cannot use that water. If the answer is no, then you can use it to make wudu. And the fourth category is najis filthy water, which is the water that najis filth contacted while it was less than 2 kullas, or it was 2 kullas but changed. 2 kullas are approximately 500 Baghdadi ritls, according to what is the most correct saying. Let's read the footnotes. The first one, it says, in the past, they had their own measurements. They did not use the same measurements we use today, such as liters, gallons, or the like. A kullah is a large container. It was called kullah because a strong man could pick it up with his hand to carry. 2 kullas is equivalent to approximately 500 ritl Baghdadi. 2 kullas is a volume measure which is about 190 liters. This comprises the fill of a round hole that measures 1 cubit in diameter and 2 cubits and a half in depth. Alternatively, it is the fill of a cubical hole, the side of which measures 1 cubit and a quarter. They used to estimate how much it would cost to fill up a container with 500 ritl. The kullah is 128 and 4/7 dirhams according to a Nawawi, but according to a Rafi'i, it is 130 dirhams. The saying of a Nawawi is stronger. So in this case, the saying of a Nawawi is stronger. Footnote number 2, some said it is 600 ritl Baghdadi and some said it is 1,000 ritl Baghdadi, but the stronger saying is that it is approximately 500 ritl Baghdadi. Some said it is an exact approximation, some said it is an exact amount and not an approximation. So if you go with the saying that it is an approximation, then it does matter if one is off by 1 or, then it does not matter if one is off by 1 or 2 ritl. But if one was off by 3 ritl, then that would matter. And if one goes with the saying that it is an exact amount, then being off by 1 ritl would matter. When this expression fil asah is used, it means there are 2 opposing opinions and both are strong. Both sayings are sahih, correct, except that one is stronger than the other. And when the expression fil sahih is used, it indicates that there is a difference in opinion, except that the opposing opinion is weak. So for the najis filthy water is defined as water that is either a small amount and it came into contact with unexempted filth, so immediately it's judged as filthy in the Shafi'i school, whether that water changed or not. Or that water was a lot, approximately 190 liters or more, and it came into contact with unexempted filth and it changed. The color, taste, or smell changed, so that makes the water filthy. So the fourth type is the najis filthy water. We start by mentioning that water is either a little amount or a lot. If the water is less than 2 kullas, it is considered little water, and if it is 2 kullas or more, then it is considered a lot of water. 2 kullas is the amount of water which fills a barrel, the diameter of which is 1 cubit and 2.5 cubits in depth. If it is less than 200 liters of water. If an unexempted najis filth falls into it, then it is judged as najis filthy immediately because it is a little amount of water. If the water is a lot of water and it gets in contact with a najis filth and it changes the water even slightly, then it is judged as najis filthy water. Prophet was asked about the water in the open land, which sometimes the beasts come and drink from. The Prophet ﷺ said what means, once the water reaches 2 kullas, then the water does not become najis filthy, except by change. This was narrated by Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, and others. And we'll conclude with this. Note, if a najis filth falls into a big lake and changed an area of the lake, that area is najis filthy, and the rest of the area is pure, tahir. And so if you have a large amount of water, and some unaccepted filth goes into the water, then if any of that unaccepted filth changes that immediate area of the water, then that changed area is judged as filthy, and the surrounding areas, the rest of the water that's not changed, is judged as pure. What was mentioned is in regards to unexempted najis filth. What we're talking about, or these judgments that we're talking about, and though if it's a small amount of water and it comes into contact with the filth, it's judged as filthy water, and if it's a large amount of water and it comes into contact with the filth, and it changes it even slightly, it's judged as filthy water. That applies to unexempted najis filth. The exempted najis filth, on the other hand, if it falls into the water becomes najis filthy if it changes the water, and if it does not change the water, it remains pure and purifying. An example are the small droplets of the najis that the eye cannot see, even if those droplets were from a pig, a dog, or like the small insects, which if you cut one of them, their blood does not run, such as mosquitoes, flies, and cockroaches. If this falls in the water and it dies in the water and does not change the water remains pure and purifying. This is because of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said what means, if the fly falls in your food, then before you continue eating, you dip it in it and then you throw it out. This was narrated by Bukhari. And you dip the fly into the drink or the food or whatever, and then you throw the fly out. This is because in one of its wings there is a disease and in the other a fluid. When a fly goes into a liquid, it puts in the wing that has the disease. This is why the Prophet ﷺ ordered us to dip it. This is why the small insects do not make the water or liquid najis filthy. That is so. The scholars, they deduce from that hadith where the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that if a fly falls into our drink, that we should push it in, dip it in so that it's submerged, and then take it out. And they deduce from that fly will not make the water filthy unless that fly changes the water. Because had just the mere contact of that water with the fly, had that changed the water, then the Prophet ﷺ would not have ordered us to dip the fly in the water. And this is one of the amazing things about Islam, that the Prophet ﷺ, he ordered his nation to do that. And he ordered his nation to do that because in one wing there's a disease, and in the other wing there is the cure for that disease, the antidote. And this is something that has recently been reported by the so-called secular science. They have mentioned that there is something on the other wing of the fly that cancels out the harm that was on the other wing. So, alhamdulillah for Islam. And we don't judge based on the standard of the non-Muslims, and we don't judge based on the standards of the people of the dunya. The author said, Tukul less equal 500 rutul approximately, that is $4.99 or $4.98. The rutul is an unit of weight that was originally used in Baghdad. Every ritl is equal to 28 and 4/7 of a dirham. A dirham is 50 grains of barley and 2/5 of a grain. Hence, there are 4 types of water as far as judgments are concerned. There is a 5th type which is purifying but prohibited to use for ghusl or wudu, like the stolen water, or the water some people put in the roads for travelers to drink, and they do not accept for others to do other than to drink from it. Footnotes 4 and 5. If someone uses stolen water to make wudu, his wudu is valid, but one has committed a sin. And if the water was dedicated for drinking only, and one used it to make wudu, his wudu is valid, but one has committed a sin. Footnote number 5, it is dedicated for a particular purpose, it is not owned by anyone. And this is something that existed a lot in the Muslim lands during the Muslim Empire. That, for example, a Muslim, he would make a water fountain, and he would say, this water fountain is only for people to drink from it when they're thirsty. So, and they dedicate that water fountain for it to be used by, let's say, the Muslims or the general public. So, since that is the case, the person that owned that fountain, they dedicated that fountain for that purpose, it would be forbidden for someone to use it for anything other than the purpose which it was dedicated for. So if the person tries to use it to make wudu, he'll be sinful for that. But the wudu will still be valid. And then finally, this is the last one. Note, if a najis filth that has the same attributes as the water fell in the water, and that water is a little water, it becomes najis filthy. If it is a lot of water and you cannot see the change, you assume if an equal quantity of a substance which has attributes that differ strongly from water fell in it, such as ink for color, musk for smell, vinegar for taste, would it change the water? If we assume the ink and it changes the water, then it is najis filthy. If no, we consider vinegar for taste. If it changes the water, then it is najis filthy. If no, we assume musk for the smell. If it changes the water, then it is najis filthy. If no, then it is still pure and purifying, tahir mutahhir. So we assume something which differs strongly. And what pertains to najis filth, a slight change makes the water najis filthy, even if it were a lot of water. So this example, let's see if they give an example. No, they didn't give an example. This example, let's say someone had urine, and it was clear urine, and there was no smell to it. And then, let's say, that urine, if it fell into a large amount of water. So how can we tell if the water changed, since the urine has no color, it has no odor, it has no taste? Because, let's say, it was clear, and the person was drinking a lot of water, literally, and basically just came out of them, and it, let's say, remained stagnant for a while, and the smell went away. But then some of that, let's say, urine that has no physical properties, it fell into a large amount of water. And now you want to know, is that large amount of water changed? Is that large amount of water now judged filthy? So then you check. If that same amount of ink fell into the water, would it change the color? If the answer is yes, then the water is filthy. If the answer is no, then he checks. If the same amount of vinegar were to fall into the water, would it change the taste? If the answer is yes, then the water is filthy. If the answer is no, the water is still pure. And then, if the answer is no, they check. If the same amount of musk fell in the water, would it change the smell? If the answer is yes, then the water would be filthy. If the answer is no, then the water would be pure. So,
You're saying it becomes filthy just that immediate area, right?
or the whole thing. And if it's,
You said a large amount of water. So if it's a large amount of water, it would just be the area.
whatever changes, if it's the area or the large amount. So let's say that there's a lake, and then there is a sewage pipe that's draining into that lake. It's feces, it's vomit, it's all disgusting things that are filthy, and it's pouring into the lake. And you want to know, can you make wudu in there? So is the water changed? Like, for example, when you take some water from the lake, does it smell like feces? If the answer is yes, the water is filthy. The whole lake is filthy. For example, if it's just to say that area where the sewage is coming in, and that area, for example, looks like feces and it smells bad, but then at the other end of the lake is clear water, you can use that water, the clear water. No. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. By that we have completed the first chapter in the book of purification, which is the types of water. So we mentioned that the 4 categories of water, recap, pure and purifying, not disliked, that's the absolute water. Pure and purifying, disliked, that's the sun-heated water. Then we have the used water, which is referring to water that was used to make wudu or ghusl or to remove filth. And we have water that was changed. These are considered to be used water. And the 4th category is the filthy water. So we'll ask about that inshallah next week. The next chapter that we're starting is a very interesting chapter, also related to purification. It is the chapter of tanning. Tanning the skins of dead animals, because this is a form of purification. Like if someone, let's say, they had a cow, and the cow, for example, got hit by a car, and so now that cow is dead. That cow was not slaughtered Islamically, therefore, once it's dead, it's filthy, it's najas. But what about the skin of the cow? Can we take it and we do a certain process with it, and then now we can use that cow hide for clothes or for a carpet or for something? That the answer will be found in this chapter after we go over it, tanning the skins of dead animals. So inshallah we can. Are there any questions out there? If there's a question, just put it in the chat. طيب, I don't see any. Are there any questions over there? طيب, نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم.
He said he has a question.
What is it?
He didn't post it.
Whoever has a question, if you can put it in the chat, hopefully, if you know the answer, we can
Pool water.
convey. Huh?
He said, what about pool water?
Yeah, if it's changed a lot, it's not purified.
You see that the water when this wasn't fire.
See?
Cuando la botella de agua se calienta en el carro, no, y es una botella que dejamos para vudú o estinjar.
No es disliked porque
Es plástico.
es plástico.
He's asking with chlorine in the water.
If it's changed a lot, then it's not purified. Huh?
Say it so he could hear your question.
Oh,
He's asking about the pool water and the chlorine inside of it.
yeah, so for the pool water, if it's changed a lot to the point where it's not called, it cannot be called water only anymore, then it's not purified. Any other questions there?
No.
Was he clear on the answer? Inshallah. طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله
You did?
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم.